All right, day one is in the books. The Packers took Iowa defensive end edge Lukas Van Ness. A little bit of a surprise to me, only in the fact that JSN was on the board. Shouldn't have been a surprise. The Packers don't like to take a receiver in the first round. They don't see the value there. I just thought JSN was going to be a different kind of receiver that they were going to target, similar to like the Justin Jefferson in 2020 discussion. But here we are. Who's left? Who are the Packers potentially targeting early and late day two? So I want to go position by position that I think we're going to have the need at and talk about a few names. So I'm going to start with receiver because I do still think pass catcher is a need and a likely target early in day two. Packers love their second round receivers. Trading up last year to get Christian Watson. Picking up guys like Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, a good number of second round receivers throughout the history of the Packers draft, in recent history even. So at receiver, I think their guy is Jalen Hyatt right now. I don't know if he's going to meet that threshold to like trade up like we did with Christian Watson last year. But the buzz was leading into the draft that the Packers really were high on Jalen Hyatt. Another guy, Jonathan Mingo, very much a Packers type receiver, really fits that Allen Lazard role. So he might be a target there as well. There was some buzz for a while that he was going to potentially end up sneaking in late first round, but I think we might be able to stick and pick him at 42 or 45. And then Rashee Rice is a little bit later, probably the end of the third, fourth round, potentially. I don't know if he'll slip all the way to the fourth round. So keep an eye on those names at receiver. Tight end, the other big position of need. Everybody was mocking that the Packers were going to take a tight end, and I can't say I'm surprised what we didn't in the first round, especially when we ended up moving up to 13. If we would have traded back, potentially. But the way you see that the board fell, tight end really wasn't hugely addressed until the end of the first round. And we're looking at guys like Michael Mayer, who's still on the board, Darnell Washington, Sam Laporta, Luke Musgrave. All these guys are still on the table. I don't know if, the Packers love all of them and are willing to just stick and pick whichever happens to fall, if one falls, or if they're willing to take that risk even. But, as I predicted, I think the Packers are going to take two tight ends that are 6'6" or taller. So I think Washington might be their guy. But the value as Michael Mayer continues to fall, it might just be too tempting for Green Bay, and they might go in that route. Another position potentially of need, offensive tackle, looking towards the future. We've got a guy like Cody Mock who's still available there. There's DeJuan Jones, the other tackle from Ohio State, other than Paris Johnson Jr. Those are some potential options there. I think Cody Mock is very much a Packers type. You can easily see him in the green and gold, as he was similarly in green and gold in North Dakota State. But you look at him and he is a gritty, hard-nosed football player, and kind of fits what the Packers would probably want, like even physically and attitude-wise on the offensive line. Safety is obviously a big need as well. Really, we're looking at the full gamut of available safeties. They talked in some of the draft coverage yesterday about how you're really not even hardly looking at Brian Branch as a safety. You're really looking at him more as a nickel corner kind of role. But we've got guys like Quan Martin, who the Packers are very high on. You got Jordan Battle still out there, Sidney Brown from Illinois, and then Jamie Robinson, who we had brought in for a visit as well. So those are some potential names at safety. There are a few edges that are still kind of interesting out there as well, even though we went edge in the first round, or defensive end edge in the first. I think the versatility of Adetomiwa Adebaware would be a very interesting pick for the Packers. And you also got guys like Isaiah Foskey, who's highly productive at Notre Dame. So there's a few names that, again, you can never have too many pass rushers. So maybe that's one of the 2 second-round picks there as well. At a defensive tackle, there's still a number of guys out there. Wisconsin's Keanu Benton, if you want to go a homegrown type. There's Siaki Ika. There's Jacqueline Roy, who is still out there. That's also a position of need that we could potentially target here as well. And some of that versatility I talked about with Adebaware could also play into that decision in that route as well. The last thing I want to touch on, though, is the quarterbacks. So Will Levis fell all the way out of the first round. That's going to have an impact on the beginning of this second round, whether it's, some of those teams that are coming back up for a second pick here, taking him potentially, and that means they're not taking another position, or if that means potential trade-ups from teams that are within striking distance now of that potential guy. But I think it'll be really interesting to see where that slide ends for Will Levis, and also how that impacts, the Packers, board as it comes, because the more quarterbacks that dropped, the more opportunity there is that teams are going to try to go that route in this intermediate, late first, second, early second kind of range. So the fact that he didn't go at the end of the first is interesting, and the whole fifth year option discussion. So we might not see the end of this slide for a little bit, but I would expect Will Levis is probably gone before the Packers pick at 42. Not that we would be looking at picking him, I wouldn't suspect. So, but I'll be back tomorrow with some more coverage of who the Packers took on day 2, and then who's available heading into day 3. And if you haven't yet, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Packers news and notes.